what are you focused on, and what are some of the non-negotiables with your workouts? As you enter a workout, what are you focused on, and what are you making sure that it's non-negotiable? This is the way we do things, whether it's game
Right.
speed or game movements. Talk a little bit about that.
And I think that's interesting too, because I feel like, and I'm not just saying this, but I feel like when you do this skill stuff for so long, or you develop a brand or whatever it is, or people understand how you work, I think when they get to the gym, they understand like what they need to bring. So I do think, and maybe this is the right or wrong way, but I do think that there is some unsaid non-negotiables or unsaid things that when you walk in the gym with me, that you understand that it's time to go. I'm not going to be there screaming in your ear and stuff like that. Like, you got to bring it. Um, the other thing, which I do vocally say a lot, is growth mindset and being okay with mistakes, because honestly, and I just did a team camp today, and that's all we talked about. There were small town kids, and I said, look, there's going to be a lot of stuff that you're not going to be good at, and there's going to be a lot of stuff that seems easy, and when you do it, it's not going to be easy. But if you give up and just quit, you'll never like it. And you probably, people hear this for their whole life. If you just give up and quit, you're never going to improve. So that is something I'm always constantly preaching, is growth mindset, being out of your comfort zone, because that's where you actually see development, in my point of view. And even at the pro level, guys that are, have a resume and have played so long and have had legendary coaches, being able to come to me and say, okay, Shane, I trust you. What are we doing today? I'll go all out with whatever you say we're going to do. Whether that's a post player doing drag footwork and all this stuff. It's impressive to see somebody at that level be able to do that. And it's something that kids should be able to do as well, which is tough to do. It's tough to get kids in that mindset, because if they make a mistake, they feel like they might be embarrassed, or they want to make sure they're doing everything right in front of you and stuff like that. But that's a big one for me, is being willing to get out of your comfort zone, because that's kind of, how I approach every session, is pushing kids out of their comfort zone a little bit.
We could have a separate podcast or a webcast to talk about fear of failure, and how
Oh yeah.
important it is to be able to be okay with making a mistake, and the
Right.
importance of it towards your growth. But
Right.
that's another day. That's another conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
I want to move a little bit into your work with pros.
Yep.
Who are some of the people? Who are some of the players? Who are some of the best players that you've been around, and what has separated them from others?
So right now I have Reed Travis, Kentucky guy, Stanford guy, is overseas. DeAndre Liggins is another one that went to Kentucky, was in the league for a little bit. Those two guys are great. Reed Travis and Liggins both work like pros, and I'm assuming it's because they played at a high level, and they were forced to do that stuff. But for example, Reed shows up early no matter what. He goes twice a day. He's never late. He actually had to, his body was sore the other day. He called me and was like vocally upset about that. He felt like he was letting me down because he couldn't make it because he was sore. And I was like, dude, it's not a big deal. But that's just like the way they think, is like, look, this is my schedule. I'm going to show up on time. I'm focused on what I want. And both guys had, we had sit downs, and we talked about our goals and what they wanted. And when you have that, you have something that you can clearly work towards. And that's huge. So yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I would say, and I love that Reed gets to work out on the same course that my little guys get to work out, or my kids get to work out, because they get to see his pre-workout stretches, how he handles himself. He sits down and gets his water, and then he's right back up. Like, he truly is a pro. And you don't need to be in the league and, go to Kentucky to be able to work like that. You can be a high school kid and still show up on time and take care of your body and get your grades right and stuff like that. So I think just the approach to the workout is huge. Just mentally being prepared when you walk in the doors. I think that's a huge thing for me.
I had some experiences when I was at Oregon with Reed Travis, and he caused some
Oh, I'm
problems
sure.
for
Yeah.
us when on the floor when he was at Stanford,
Yeah.
and then he moved over, like you said, to Kentucky, and had a great year there for them. But he was someone that when I watched, and when we scouted him, he was a matchup nightmare. His strength combined with his athleticism, and now his skill, and he's really grown from a skill standpoint with his ability to step out and shoot the basketball. But that year he was at Stanford, man, he was a very tough matchup for us. They really they got after us at Stanford. That was not a good game for the Ducks, and
Yeah.
he was a big reason why. Talk about now kind of with these pros, and having the ability to work with and the opportunity to work with high level players. Talk about some of the experiences that you've been able to have through being a skills coach with some
Sure.
of these pros.
Um, one thing I did last year was before I was with Sanford and I was just kind of doing my own thing. I went out to LA because I wanted to go out there when pre-draft was out there. And so I hit up guys like Drew Hanlon and all these, bigger name trainers. I just said, look, I'm flying. I'm getting my own spot. I just want to be in the gym. Tell me if I need a rebound or what. And Drew hit me back, said I could. Another guy hit me back, said I could. And that, honestly, me going out to LA and then coming back to Sioux Falls changed everything mentally. As a business, people saw me in LA and it was cool and stuff, but like me mentally going out there and coming back was huge. So things like that, where it's like you get this little taste of like high level, and then you come back to your area and you're like just mentally prepared to dominate. That's been a huge for me. Um, Another experience just this past like winter was going out to Germany with Reed, and just being a part of, and just for a week, just really being a part of a team for just an overseas team and seeing how they work and seeing what that life is like, just being right next to Reed's side and understanding like what his schedule is. So now when I get other pro guys, I can kind of explain to them, what life is like out there and how teams handle you and stuff like that. So I'm trying to get more of those experiences. I'm always trying to talk to more players and more coaches and just learn, kind of like what we did before or talked about before, was just constantly just trying to improve. So yeah, I mean, you get to meet these cool guys with all these connections, and you just realize that they're regular dudes and they just want to work out and they want to, keep pushing. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to keep pushing and keep learning from any relationship.
Just through this conversation and the conversations we've had prior, I can see the passion for skill development, and the passion for, when you really dig down to the bare bones of it, is just your passion for seeing people get better,
Yeah.
and improve. What do you envision, or what is your vision for how your players and the people you train, how they see you as a strength coach, or
Right.
as a strength or a skills trainer, all the way
Right.
down from elementary all the way up to the pros? How do you want to be envisioned as a skills trainer?
100%. One of the most important things is, I ask these kids to just constantly be growing and to never be satisfied. And that's kind of, and it goes with saying like everything else, if I ask somebody to do something, I should be willing to do it too. So, I'm not out there on the gym, like working on all my moves and my game anymore. But I do need to be constantly growing with what I'm doing. So I want kids to know that, with the game, when the game is changing and, there's new concepts and new this and new that, that I'm always on top of that stuff and I'm studying it, and I'm never just, like we talked before, there's nothing that's just going to be cookie cutter, and I'm not just going to throw you into something to throw you into it and try to take your money. I'm, I want them to view me as genuine, hardworking, and doing it for the right reasons, and just, like we said, just always kind of improving and never really satisfied with what I have, as far as knowledge goes.
What does success look like to you?
That's a tough. That is a tough one. I think it's always changing for me, and I think I like it like that because then I'm just always pushing forward. Um, you know, I get to wake up every day and go to a gym and work out kids and, have fun and be in a gym. And it's like that in itself is almost successful. So I do have to remind myself, and this is something I'm trying to improve on, almost pinch yourself and be like, look, this is your job, dude. Like, it's really not that hard. You know what I mean? Like this is a good life. And I have to take those moments. But yeah, success is always changing. I'm always trying to take the next step, whether it's with my career or help a kid take a next step. So that is a tough question, but I do think just constantly improving. If I can walk away from this knowing that I helped a bunch of kids and a bunch of players and develop great friendships and relationships and, change the community where I'm living, I think that's going to be success to me.
We've talked a lot about, continuous learning. You mentioned videos and other trainers that you look up and you study from a book or podcast standpoint. What are some books or podcasts that you have learned from or that you continue to go back to?
Reed Ossie does have one called The Drawing Board. These are basketball related. Anthony Pugh, Clockwork Athletics has one. God, there's a couple of those, but as far as the podcast or the books goes, I'm not really on those a lot, to be honest, especially right now. I'm more on people's like platforms as far as their social media accounts or their just online virtual academy stuff, to be honest. But I do like those two podcasts for sure. I would check out Anthony Pugh's and I would check out Reed Ossie's because I think they do a good job of not only bringing skills guys, but coaches. And I do think, we're not really talking about this, but I do think the relationship between skills trainers and coaches is tricky. And I do think that it kind of goes both ways, but as a skills trainer, you have to kind of show respect and you have to make sure that you're working on the right stuff. And there's a relationship that needs to be developed there. And I don't know that everybody does it right, but I do know there's a high value on skills guys and coaches living in the same world and being able to help each other. So
who have you learned from that you think other people should learn from?
Oh man. My dad. I'm just kidding. I would say if you have a high school coach, if you have a college coach, don't take them for granted. Whether they're in a small town or not, there's going to be something that you can take for them that you can carry with your whole life. So any personal relationships like that anybody would have, I would go there. Somebody in my shoes, I would personally try to learn from, like I said before, everybody and just kind of form your own style. As much as I try not to be like Reed Ossie, there's a lot of things that him and I believe in that we have in common. But Reed Ossie might not be the same dude for everybody. Micah Lancaster is out of this world when it comes to breaking stuff down. There's so much things I can learn from him, but I don't train like Micah, but I can take things from him. And same thing with Drew. Drew's almost the opposite of Micah, where it's completely game-like. And there's stuff that I can take from Drew and put into my stuff. So there's a lot of these big name trainers that are good to learn from, but honestly, if you can take some value from your local coaches, I think that's huge.
Well, Shane, I appreciate you taking the time. I think you shed light on a lot of things related to player development and skill development. You're obviously on your way. You're working with some high-level players. You have a great foundation set up there in Sioux Falls. So Thank you very much for taking the time. I appreciate it. I look forward to our next conversation.
For sure. I appreciate you having me on, and we'll keep talking and keep collaborating. It's going to be fun.